Hi guys, Pete the Wargamer here, and after posting my competition winners video the other day, a few of you said, wanted to know if I had any submissions that caught my eye, so anything that basically I thought stood out, and the answer to that is yes. I actually had over about 169 altogether submissions, and to kind of get through them, I kind of shortlisted them, and I got made them shorter and shorter until I picked the final winner, which was the Lanterns of the Cleansing Flame. And that video is being worked on currently. I have it right here on my desk being worked on. And I just wanted to do a quick video just to kind of talk about some honourable mentions, some of the chapters that really stood out to me. So it's going to be a very kind of quick, informal video. I've got my notes here about the various ones. So I picked 10 of them just because it's a nice round number. I'm going to talk about no particular order, just the order that probably that it was sent to me or that I wrote them down. So them being at the top or the bottom of the list makes no difference. So the first, the chapter that I wanted to talk about here was the Stone Wardens, and that was suggested to me by Thibaud, Thibaud. Do apologise if I'm getting that pronunciation wrong. So what I really liked about these were basically, they had this kind of medieval knight styling, and you probably noticed a bit of a theme here. I really like the historically inspired Space Marine chapters. These guys have, but they were medieval inspired, but they weren't necessarily straight up medieval in their appearance. And they had a really cool idea of basically creating like a bullpup bolt rifle. So instead of having the magazine in front of where the trigger goes, it goes behind, and you can have like a longer barrel kind of thing. And I thought it was quite an interesting idea. It might have been a bit tricky to convert, but it would have been interesting to give it a go at least. They also had this cool kind of feudal aspect as well. So they made use of Astra Militarum forces, and they kind of directly controlled the militia that inhabited their planet, their homeworld. And I thought it'd be pretty cool to integrate some Imperial Guard with them and give them a feudal style. A little bit of a hint of what might come in the future in terms of conversion videos from Imperial Guard there. But yeah, I liked them. They had a really cool kind of shadowy history. It didn't really go into too much information about them. It was something that they didn't really get on with the Inquisition. Something happened. They were kind of in a penance for something that happened in the Inquisition. So what happened there because I mean, the Inquisition, these guys don't mess around. If they think you've done something bad, they're going to really come down heavy on you. So what was bad enough to involve the Inquisition, but not quite bad enough for your chapter just be dissolved. So, great suggestion there. So that's the first one. The next one that we have are the Oath Keepers, and this was suggested to me by Jem. And I like these because they were kind of... one of the things I said in that original video was to have only Loyalist chapters. No Renegades, no Chaos Space Marines, no kind of just like Loyalist versions of Chaos Space Marines either. But this chapter of the Oath Keepers, they were pretty cool actually, because they were essentially Loyalist from their own perspective. They believed that they followed the Emperor. They wanted to follow the Emperor. They followed his creed and wanted to protect humanity. But because they had denied a direct order to abandon a planet that they were originally sent to retrieve a relic from, they were then kind of cast out. They were viewed as being, oh, well, you didn't follow the orders, therefore you're now a renegade. But these guys aren't followers of Chaos. They still believe in the Imperium, but they just didn't want to abandon the planet that they fought on in it. And you kind of have this really cool grizzled appearance to this chapter. It has really worn down armor. All the actual Space Marines in the chapter are going to be grizzled. They're going to be veteran. They're going to be old. It's kind of going to remind me of the remaining Clone Troopers. I don't know if anyone's seen like the Clone Troopers Star Wars series, how you've got those kind of few Clone Troopers that are left over, and they're all like, they're in these like jerry-rigged AT, ST, AT, I can't remember the things, the big walker thing from the clones, and it kind of gave me that idea to them. And also they just had some really cool aesthetics, and I thought that would be pretty cool. I think that was, yeah, so basically that was why I really liked them. I thought it was a cool kind of take on a Loyalist chapter while still being Loyalist, but then breaking them off a little bit from the Imperium, which I do quite like. So the next ones, I do apologise if I'm getting the name of the chapter wrong this time. Saurotes? Saurotes. Saurotes. That was suggested by John. So these guys, so if you liked if you like Waterworld, then these guys are going to be a big kind of fan for you. They're essentially from a planet which was a Forge World planet. It had rising ocean levels and basically everything's submerged now, and you've suddenly got a planet which is just kind of inhabited by these flotillas of tribes, and they basically fight over the limited scarce resources between them. A few of them kind of try to kind of go down to the lower levels, to these forge worlds, to these like spires, to reclaim metal, to look for artifacts, things like that. And these guys are like really, really like grim guys. And if you can survive all that, and you get picked by the Space Marine chapter, the Saurotes, yeah, I'm gonna say Saurotes, Saurote. If you get picked by those, you get taken to one of the like only remaining landmasses there, and it's basically a temple. This temple's kind of being run by the Space Marines, but they don't directly say so. And they kind of send these guys, these aspirants, out into the world, and they have got to circumnavigate the planet using a boat and very limited resources. And if they can kind of get through the rigor of having to like scavenge for food, deal with thirst, dehydration, hunger, probably all the nasty creatures that live under the ocean, and all that managed to actually get around, dealing with storms, get around. It kind of just shows that they were tough enough to go through the Space Marine trials, and then when they return, they're then taken underground to this big underground complex where they actually become Space Marines. So I really like the idea for them. Really like the background for that. Their actual stylings were more kind of just Romanesque. Again, kind of a few people kind of fed into that like of historical stuff that I had. So the next chapter that we have are the Hooded Crows, and those were suggested by Simon. Now, at first, when I first got this email, I thought, are these guys just going to be straight up Raven Guard kind of copies, a little bit slightly different? But you know what? I kind of felt a bit bad for thinking that, because I didn't think someone would actually just send me an email and say, oh yeah, these are just Raven Guard in a different name. So, they obviously are the Raven Guard are the progenitors, so they do stem from the Raven Guard, but they aren't necessarily quite the same. So these guys are medieval knights. Oh, what a surprise! They're kind of like a half knight, half kind of bird motif, and they're based on an actual bird, the hooded crow, which kind of works together. So they work together with other crows to kind of take down bigger prey themselves. And this is kind of what they do. They work very closely with other Space Marines. They fight in groups as opposed to being individuals. I really like the artwork as well, and I'll probably include some on the screen now, because I really like the drawings that were done. It kind of showed how their attire and their aesthetics progressed as those Space Marines moved up the ranks within the Hooded Crow. So it's kind of really cool little kind of backstory to them and the aesthetics, and also kind of tying them into a real world kind of style as well. So next up, my phone's not responding. Okay, there we go. Now these ones are, I like these ones because and I'll explain why. They are the Wolven Aspirants from Fringe. Now Fringe is a guy who's on my Discord, so if you're on the Discord server, you'll see him popping up quite a while. And basically they're kind of like Space Wolves. Well, they are Space Wolves, basically. They come from space. They're all Primer Space Wolves, and I never liked the baby blue colour of Space Wolves armor. I've always disliked it, and I really liked the kind of like dark grey appearance that the kind of the Heresy era Space Wolves had, and these guys really tap into that kind of light that I had. So great on finding that little in. But they're kind of like tougher Space Marines. I know they have like heavier armor. They have more of, I suppose, like a Germanic styling to them, rather than like a Norse styling. It's like a Germanic. I know there's probably some anthropologists out there saying, "Oh, they're basically the same thing." Well, as far as this is concerned, they're different. Okay, so I really like the stylings. They had this kind of cool idea for their armor. I think one of their pauldrons and one of their arms will be slightly heavier. They'd be a bit more kind of close combat, like kind of brawlers, as opposed to kind of like savage fighters like the Space Wolves are. These guys would weigh in, use their bulk and mass to kind of really like hit down on the enemy. So I like the idea of that one. We have the Dusk Stalkers. I can get my words out. And that was suggested by Zach. Now, the reason why I like the Dusk Stalkers, I can't say Dust Stalkers. See, this is what happens when I don't have editing. Whenever you're watching my tutorials, I always have like loads of editing. I've done multiple takes, but this is what it's like when I don't have a script. Dust Stalkers, and that was suggested by Zach. And I really like these guys because they actually fall in line with an idea I had a while ago. And this is basically desert dwelling Space Marines. They have kind of like, they use a lot of eliminators. So they have the cloaks, they have the snipers, they have long range weaponry. They are also, I mean, interestingly, have a genetic defect which causes their eyesight to fail, and they have to have them replaced by cybernetics. I thought it was kind of a cool little thing you could pick up and do some cool little conversions by like replacing their eyes, kind of like how I did the glass beads in the Aversa Assassin tutorial that I did a while ago. And I really like the idea of that. I actually had a similar idea for a chapter, very, very kind of guerrilla warfare in a desert, sandy coloured armour, probably damaged and beaten, more probably painted over to match in with a desert life. And I call them the Sand Snakes, but I actually really like Dust Stalkers as well. It's pretty cool. Kind of reminds me of Rust Stalkers as well. Now, this is actually another chapter that I had some kind of similar ideas to when I was coming up with my own homebrew chapters. So it's kind of cool that someone else had a similar idea to me, and it's one of the reasons why it caught my eye. So this are the Excavators, and these are suggested by Sam. And as their name suggests, these guys are experts at tunnel fighting, close quarter fighting. They're really good at kind of undermining fortresses and kind of destroying them from within. They're kind of like, don't want to say it, but loyalist Hazmarines. And now, if you're wondering why the camera's shaking, it's because the dog's here and she really wants to play. But the reason why they kind of have this like really cool kind of aesthetic. They're not Iron Warriors, but they have the hazard stripes. They have like an orange and black theme to them. I really liked the idea that they would use weapons that can be used for utilitarian purposes as well. So rather than having just like a chainsaw, they might have like an angle grinder or some like a power claw that could kind of cut through weaponries, or rock drills. Things which really kind of had multi-purpose uses and really allowed, kind of would have given me really nice ideas to use like Gene Stealer components or House Goliath components to kind of stick them on Space Marines and have these really cool kind of tunnel specialist Space Marines. So the next one, I guess you could kind of boil them down to what Sisters of Battle would be if they were a Space Marine chapter instead, and they were kind of constantly huffing paint fumes. These guys are the Pyre Stokers, and these are suggested by Dan. And they're essentially just crazy pyromaniacs. I mean, everyone's got a bit of a pyromaniac in them. Everyone loves messing with matches, maybe. Is that just me? Okay. But yeah, these guys, I like them because the aesthetics that they had were kind of very reminiscent of the Bright Wizards from Warhammer Fantasy, not Age of Sigmar Fantasy. If you played Vermintide, you'll know the Bright Wizard in that. She's got some really cool kind of flaming like headgear and staffs, and it's all very kind of fire everywhere. Everything burns, and I just kind of liked the idea of having this kind of Space Marine chapter that was obsessed with fire, obsessed with burning things down, and just destroying everything in sight that they deemed to be heretical. I know there's a kind of a crossover there. I didn't want them to be... I kind of felt that maybe at first they were too close to Sisters of Battle, too close to the Inquisition forces, like the witch hunters that we used to have. But what I liked about them was that it was more the focus on the fire and the cleansing side of the fire. And that's kind of what I do like. And that's a little bit of a clue as to why I chose the chapter I did for the winners. So they were the Pyre Stokers by Dan. Now, the last one, now I know I did say that I wasn't going to have them in a particular order, but these guys were actually one of the earliest submissions that I had. And this was kind of like where I started to see how kind of the first kind of impression that I got, this was going to be really cool to see how everyone was going to be suggesting things and how varied things were going to be. Now, these guys are, let me just get the name correct, the Sons of Sarmatia. Sons of Sarmatia. I'm really struggling with this, guys. I'm sorry. Next time we run a conversion competition, I'm going to have you guys to kind of phonetically spell everything out, or send me an audio clip about how to pronounce your chapters' names or even your names. And these are produced. These are suggested by Patryk. And the reason why these guys kind of spoke to me is because I've been playing a lot of The Witcher recently, and it's kind of got this quite strong Polish medieval aesthetic to them, and so do these guys. These guys aren't just your typical, oh, it's medieval Polish, let's just go for the wing to stars, and they kind of have a really cool kind of aesthetic to them. The suggestions that I was given were a few films. I forget what the names of the films were, but I kind of really want to check them out, just because of how cool the screenshots that were sent from me. And they are from the White Scars, so of course their chapter is very much all about bikes, hit and run tactics, but rather than kind of, well, not necessarily hit and run, not quite, they're kind of like heavy cavalry to what the White Scars are in terms of it's my dog, she really wants attention. Great. So that rather than being heavy cavalry, they are in fact, rather than being light cavalry like the White Scars, they're more heavy cavalry. They're more designed for smashing into the opponents, mean more heavily armoured and armoured. And it would be cool to kind of trying to represent that on a bike form. And she's just in the camera. So yeah, those were one of the first kind of chapters that I thought, you know what, this is one of the first ones I earmarked to put down into this kind of final list. And I mean, the only reason I didn't end up picking a lot of these chapters wasn't simply because there was no real one thing. If you can see the ones I've suggested, some of these had whole swathes. I mean, some of them had like 20 odd pages of background and lore and photos, and some of them didn't. And it didn't matter because it wasn't about how much necessarily time and writing ability you had. It was about the idea, and that's ultimately what I wanted. Some people suggested the components I could use, and that was amazing. It was great, but again, some people didn't, and not everyone who got on that list suggested it either. So I guess what I want to say is a few people I think have said wanted to know why I chose the chapters that I did, and it kind of just boils down to a gut feeling. I wanted to be able to see how I would create that chapter in my head. I wanted to see how the chapter would be built from existing components, how it would be painted, how it would be posed, and if I could see that from reading your suggestions, then I knew that I was onto a winner. I knew that the chapter that I would be producing would be interesting, it'd be cool, and that's where I did it. It's a really untangible feeling. It sounds very wishy-washy, but there isn't a strict set of criteria or guidelines that I went through. It's basically, if I like the idea of it, if I like the look of it, then it made a short list, and I just whittled them down very slowly, very arduously, because there's some fantastic suggestions. And you know what? It's been great because I'm going to be using some of these. I fully expect to see some of these in just generic homebrew chapter videos, because the ideas that you guys had are either in line with some of the stuff that I've had, or they're better. So even if you didn't win, you probably will see your chapters, good chance of seeing some of those chapters pop up again in the future. And I'm definitely going to be doing this again, because it's been an amazing experience. Just the amount of creativity, the amount of effort, the artwork, everything was fantastic, and it was really great to be a part of it. So a huge thank you to everyone who suggested their own Space Marine chapters. And I will definitely be doing more, be it Chaos Space Marines, Astra Militarum, maybe even something else, but those kind of three have probably got the richest kind of background, the most open background. That's what I really love about 40k and Warhammer. And I'm going off on a tangent now, but I'm on my soapbox. So one of the things that you may notice if you read my comments, and some people will say, oh, Dark Angels don't have that colour of bolter, or that colour of blue is wrong. I get probably a little bit offended by it a bit more, not because that someone's called me out on being wrong, because most of the time you're not wrong. It's just a different interpretation of something. And I think there's so much variety and so much kind of interesting scope to build upon in the 40k universe, and even Age of Sigmar to a degree. It's getting better. It's not as good as Fantasy. It's not as rich as Fantasy, but it has got kind of more of an openness to it, so you can kind of do. And this is about 40k anyway. And I really love to see people's creations and the creativity that they show. And I think if you're going to be so rigidly sticking to what Black Library have put out, what the Codex has put out, what the rulebooks say, and as soon as you start being very rigid to that, you're kind of stifling the creativity of people. And that's a shame. And that's why I get a little bit shirty with some people in the comments sometimes, because they do that and it really annoys me. But anyway, sorry. Tangent. I'm just enjoying talking now. I've got my dog here, so I'm just enjoying talking to everyone. But yeah, thank you to all your suggestions. The 10 that I chose were just some of the top 10 that I saw in no particular order, and hopefully you can kind of see just a glimpse at the creativity that I had. I'd love to go through every single one, but I mean, this video is probably like 20 minutes already, and I've only looked at 10, so you can see, yeah. So anyway, I'm going to stop now. Thank you to everyone who suggested. The actual Lanterns of the Cleansing Flame video will be coming very soon, and we will be doing more of these videos in the near future. So, thanks for watching, and goodbye. Leninus. He's in a dreadnought. I honestly can't get over it.